All right, in this video, we're going to be looking at Porifera classes, and we'll be looking at 3 of the 4 Porifera classes in this class. The first one that we're going to look at is Calcispongiae. Calcispongiae is the smallest of the 3 classes that we're looking at, with only 400 species. These animals, among their ancestors, represent the first animals like ever. First animals. These are called Calcispongiae because they are calcareous sponges, meaning that their spicules are composed completely of calcium carbonate. They tend to be really small. They have a height less than 10 centimeters, and so they're pretty small. Even though these some of the pictures, like especially the one on the right, can make them look a little bigger than they actually are. They do tend to be pretty small, and they can contain any of the 3 channel systems that we looked at: the asconoid, leuconoid, or syconoid channel systems. That's it on Calcispongiae. Next is Hexactinellida. Hexactinellida is the glass sponges, and these are among the longest living organisms on Earth. Some of them, science has estimated to live up to 15,000 years, which is, that's a pretty long time. That means that there are sponges out there that were around when civilization first started. So that's pretty big, long. Most of them are located really deep sea, usually located in really cold environments. Of course, the deep sea is going to be inherently cold, but there's some, more Arctic regions. Most of them have a kind of radial symmetry. You can see there on the left, it's not true radial symmetry, but they do kind of have that radial look to them. They have a kind of a vase or funnel shape to them. They can be over 1 meter in length, and so these are quite a bit bigger than their cousins, the Calcispongiae. They typically contain 6 rayed spicules, and so when we say 6 rayed spicules, this is what you see here. It's got 6 rays on it. It's kind of like a jack, if anybody even knows what jacks are. My first thought, of course, is caltrops, but that comes from tabletop RPG experience. And so you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 raised spicules that are made out of glass. Another word for glass spicules is siliceous, which just think of the word silicon. And so it has that same prefix or same root in it. Their tissues are what we call syncytial. And so what we mean by syncytial is, so how do I explain this? So imagine all of the cells that would have made up a particular portion of the body, and imagine them all kind of blending together to where it's just one big cell. Multiple nuclei in that cell, because you had all those cells, so lots of cells blending together to kind of become one giant cell. So multiple cells fuse together to create this syncytial kind of tissue. The most of its body is composed of this syncytium, and it's the name of that syncytium is called the trabecular reticulum, which you can see here, and you can kind of get an idea of that syncytial type thing. Obviously, there are individual cells like choanocytes and others that exist, but this syncytium is what kind of takes up most of its body. All right, and then the last class that we're going to look at in here is called Demospongiae. This is the most diverse group of sponges, meaning that about 95% of all living species are represented by this class. And so this is probably the more advanced of the 3 classes. They do have siliceous spicules as well, and so they have the glass spicules, but they are not 6 rayed. The 6 rayed spicules are exclusive to Hexactinellida. All of the sponges in Demospongiae are leuconoid, and all of them are marine except for one family. In Demospongiae, there is one family of freshwater sponge, and a lot of the sponges in Demospongiae are very vibrant, and you can see here from the pictures here, Really bright colors. Of course, here's our token diver in the background picture. Gives us an idea of the size of this thing. It's really, really big, really big sponge. And so Demospongiae represent quite a large variety of sponges. So let's talk a little bit about sponge phylogeny here. This gives you an idea of where they are in the course of all animals. So back here, you have fungi, and you have this branch of fungi and everything else, right? Animals. But then that first branch is the choanoflagellates, which we talked about in a previous video, which represent the first common ancestor with animals, which would have been back here. And then all other animals kind of branch off. And then from this initial animal branch, you have sponges, and then everything else kind of goes up here, and you get the idea. And so you can see how true tissues come around later, and porifera is kind of represents the lowest level of animals. Even though there's still a lot going on for porifera, they still represent pretty low level. And here's a cladogram of the three sponge classes that we looked at. Calcispongiae would be back here at the beginning. Carbonate sponges. This is you can see here the derived character for all sponges is these internal system of pores for water to flow. This makes them different than, say, a single-celled organism or even a more complex multicellular organism that doesn't have any real structure. And then Siliceous spicules came later, and then the two classes here, Demospongiae and Hexactinellida. And so depending on the cladogram you look at, you're going to see these two reversed. Doesn't matter a whole lot here, but you can see, this represents the different things that Demospongiae have, and this represents the different things that Hexactinellida has: 6-ray spicules, syncytial tissues, and this has spicules that aren't necessarily 6 rays. You get the idea. Diversification among sponges really centers around the water filtering system and the type of spicules that are present. There is an interesting new sponge that it's not new, but it's new to us, that has been discovered. It was discovered in 2012. And what's interesting about this is called a harp sponge. What's interesting about this particular sponge is it lives in very nutrient-poor environments. It lives in cave systems and really deep down in the ocean. It's off the coast of California, actually found at around 3,500 meters, which is pretty deep down. And what's interesting is that it actually doesn't have choanocytes. So it's the only sponge that we know of that doesn't, and it actually is a carnivorous sponge. It captures prey using these little hook systems on the ends here and throughout these little harps, and is able to just kind of digest them slowly over time. These end structures here, I believe, are reproductive organs, and so the business end, or the eating, is going to happen in these little filter harp areas. So this just shows you that not all, well, a couple things actually. Sponges have a lot of diversity, and it shows you that we're still discovering really cool things that we could not have even thought of. So you wonder how many more things are out there. It almost kind of looks like a plant with this root system, but this is definitely a sponge. Several studies have been done of this over the last few years, and it's pretty interesting to watch.